Connecting Human Nature and Wild Nature, an art show at the Route11 Creative Arts Centre in Warman, Saskatchewan. Michelle Thevenot is a mixed practice artist, and her art reflects a sincere appreciation for nature's gifts and discovers familiar, relatable connections between human nature and wild nature. By interpreting lessons observed in the wilderness and connecting with human experience, her artworks turn toward visual storytelling and invite deeper personal interpretations. Welcome to my art show, Connecting Human Nature and Wild Nature at Route11 Creative Arts Centre in Warman, Saskatchewan. So I thought I would bring you through a little walkthrough what there is to see here for those that can't make it, or maybe if you can, this will inspire you to stop by and take a look for yourself. Come on then. So starting over here, we have a collection of the human aspect of the art exhibit. So this one is called Eyes. It's an acrylic painting on canvas. And here we have Wilderness Walk, which is a diamond willow walking stick with various varieties of natural fur that has either been reclaimed from sewing scraps or from old vintage fur coats. There's a cordage hand grip in macrame, and then the base is a spruce log that's been cut with chainsaw as a holder. It can be taken out and used as a functional walking stick, but it is also kind of a modern sculpture to be on display as well. We have energy here, shards of rainbow self-portrait. That is a different style from a lot of the others, and very colorful as well. Now along the table here, we've got some of my fur collection. So I am a licensed trapper. I've been trained in humane fur handling, as well as I really value working with vintage garments such as fur coats and repurposing them into new designs. So these are my textile arts and a sample of those. I've got a couple smaller canvas paintings and a soapstone sculpture as well. So that's a newer medium for me that I'm working into more recently. Aerial Artist 2 is over here. We've got Blue Calm. And a lot of these human aspects are tying together the colors of nature, connection with nature, the freedom, and just the energy that a person will feel when they feel the most alive. And for me, I feel most alive when I'm connected with nature, and the human nature aspect is to move and to be vibrant and live a healthy, vibrant lifestyle. So that's kind of an overview of those human nature paintings. In the corner here, I've got Lady of the Forest Wood Spirit, which is a chainsaw and power carved sculpture out of a spruce log. So the Lady of the Forest was inspired by a tree spirit, so to speak. So when I'm in the forest, sometimes I just feel a connection with a tree, or there's a character that kind of comes through in an image. And this one was very free-flowing, and I didn't have a plan to start with it. That's just kind of what emerged as I started working with the wood. It is a tree spirit or a wood spirit. And then here we're going into some other paintings. And this one's Water Drops 2 on canvas with acrylic. Again, it's just a macro view, a close-up of the really bright and colorful and interesting details of water drops on a flower. And this one is Pandora's Box. It's kind of an interpretation of an older painting by another artist. That's what it's inspired by, and the story of Pandora, which is an old mythical story. But this one, I interpreted it as though she is opening a box to discover her reality and find her truest self in nature. And that's why I really connected with that image. The light behind is one of my favorites. This is also an interesting canvas painting with some subsurface texture. This is where I started getting really interested in three-dimensionality. And I started creating and sculpting the surface of the canvas before I could paint it. And shortly after this, I started moving into more three-dimensional work, such as my sculptures. So this is a transitional piece, going from one medium to another. Here's a larger piece called Feather. So these are the close-ups of the little fronds on a feather. Some people have said that also looks like branches on like a willow tree blowing in the wind as well, and that's an interesting interpretation. I really like the mark making and the painterly quality on this one, and the texture that was created. And down below, we have this raccoon stump. So it's just a little bit of spruce tree stump, and I carved using power tools. 3 little baby raccoons. They have glass eyes, and there's just a really cute functional piece of art. It can be used as a table or a seat. We've got orange flower here, another one with some subsurface texture on here. Macro view of the flower, nice and colorful. And over here I have Sunset Ranch, which is one of the first pieces that I am the first piece to be featured in a public art gallery in Prince Albert when I was still in high school, and that was the beginning of my professional art career at that time. And over here we have a watercolor painting inspired by a quote by Robert Frost. And in the corner here we have The Struggle. This is a log sculpture of a moose entangled in barbed wire. And he's struggling but has broken free from being entangled in this fence that he has encountered. It was inspired by an interview with someone who was struggling with a family member's addictions, and the struggle that they went through to work through that. And over here we have Twin Eagles. It is a large piece that I painted on canvas, and a lot of painterly quality, lots of texture in the sky. It's inspired by a trip to British Columbia where we saw lots of eagles, and the forest, and the fog, and the views were just amazing. In the center up here we have survival. So we have a fox that is in chase with a rabbit. They're both running and doing what they need to survive. The rabbit is running to survive, and the fox is hunting to survive. And right now they're both poised in this moment where either of them could be the winner in this situation. But I love the dynamic movement and the space. This one was carved with chainsaw and power tools, painted with wood stain, and there are areas that are burned with a torch as well to give texture or contrast in the darker areas. We have Jungle Gym up here. This is a kind of a cityscape take on the wilderness. Is what you see for wilderness in the city is these more manicured parks. And instead of trees, a lot of times we see metal structures. And that's a different kind of landscape that I encountered when I moved to the city. And great blue heron is here. Some people would say it looks like a pelican, but it was more of a free and abstract take on a great blue heron using a chainsaw. It's also painted with spray paint and some wood stain as well. We have green leaf, which has a subsurface molding texture underneath the paint. A macro view, a close-up of the landscape of the underside of the leaf. And then we have trees by the lake. This is an earlier piece as well that I did when I was in my teenage years. And again, inspired by a trip to British Columbia, where there's mountains and trees and just the vibrant colors of the bright blue fresh lakes and the leaves of the birch trees or the poplar trees in fall. And the largest painting here at the show is Tree of Life. Is taking up 6 different canvases, and there's this big swirl of activity, and it's what inspired this is that the swirl of life it can be chaotic and take up a lot of energy and space in your life, and it all kind of runs together. But when you take a step back from it all, it kind of blends together to create this this life of its own. This is your life. It all blends together from one moment to the next to create something more coherent. The marks on here were created in a spiral pattern by being suspended above it and going in and moving in a circular pattern to create the leaves and the colors and the abstract leaves. And then afterwards I used a brush to paint some of the smaller details in the tree branches. And Chickadee is over here. This is more of an impressionist mark making style of a chickadee. I just love those cheerful little birds. As you'll see, there's another chickadee not far from here either. Down on the floor, here's another take on the chickadee, the bright and cheerful chickadee. This one was a custom piece made for CBC Arts in January of this year. It was featured as their logo for the month. And then this Best of the Nest is a painting of some robin eggs in a nest. Very homey. And still life, we've got a couple of still life. This is the landscape of it within our home and how we tend to surround ourselves with natural items even within our home. So stars and textures of seashells and wood and flowers, they seem to gravitate into the house as well. A sleeping self-portrait of myself, and the close-up view is almost like a landscape in itself. And what I see with here is there's almost mountains in the background, and these are the fields leading up to it. And it's more of a study in the landscape of who we are as people, and a closer look at yourself. From Ashes We Rise is a sculpture made out of spruce log, again, carved with chainsaw. And the blackness of it is created by using a propane torch to actually burn it and char it with fire. And then I doused it with water to put it out. This one has a lot of emotion behind it and meaning. The deeper meaning is that even though that this being is suffering and going through something difficult, that even from the ashes that they rise and new growth will arise from those ashes. Here we have a couple of raven wall hangers, which are chainsaw carved and power tool carved out of wood and then stained and painted. Tulip is a canvas painting on 2 canvases. Very bright and colorful, and kind of tying in with a flower theme that I was clearly into for a while. Fawn is a charcoal drawing on paper that has been framed. I actually made this one when I was pregnant with my son, and I was obviously very excited about this new little young life that was going to be joining us very soon. So this one was inspired by him and the excitement of him joining us in this world. Blue Wall is a more urban, residential take on landscapes and how we introduce nature into our lives. And these little pops of color, and we add a little bit of nature, flowers, and gardening. It always makes it feel like a little bit more home. And I always feel at home in nature, so I like how that ties the two worlds together. Barley Bug has a iconically Saskatchewan picture of the land of the living skies and the bright and colorful, simple colors of red, yellow, blue. They are primary colors, which just kind of reflect the most simple and basic elements that is experienced on the prairies, and kind of reflects the prairie spirit that's behind the farming and agricultural history within our province. Then over here we have Red Texture, which is an abstract take. This one's a little different. So here we see a flower, and there's foil and other different textures that have been added to the subsurface here, and it's very free-flowing and abstract. In some ways it almost looks like a molecule. It could be a giant flower, but it could also be the atomic structure of the smallest bits of life as on the cellular structure. So it could be viewed a couple different ways. And the last and final piece, the largest piece in the show, is this log eagle archway on the outside of the building. It is called Portal of Healing. It features a juvenile eagle on the left and an adult eagle on the right column, carved with chainsaw and power tools, flying forward to overcome intergenerational trauma. Each of these artworks has a deeper meaning and more details available on michellethevenot.com.